What's up guys, and in today's video we have a very special video because it is the 100th upload on this channel, and today I'm going to be going through what those 100 videos have taught me about building in public, what I've learned, and how that has shaped the vision of Killer Chaos OS. So like always with these videos, the main mission is to show how builds raw and real, to show you the good, the bad, the ugly, what it is that I'm actively implementing in terms of frameworks and mental models, how we're succeeding and also how we're failing, and also just to solve what hurts, basically to come in to businesses and organizations and be the chief problem solvers and ultimately build back-end infrastructure while we're at it. And also just call in visionaries, basically people that are aligned with what it is that we're actively building, and also just to build a network of cool people doing cool things at the same time. So 100 uploads on this channel. I am super excited. We've done this through no sponsors, no scripts, no hype, just raw documentation and adding the every single day videos that we've been adding in sickness, in confusion, and in clarity. So many things have encompassed these 100-day videos that we've made over the the past few years. I know that for me personally, there's been a lot of growth and a lot of lessons that I have learned, even from the days that I started out with this YouTube channel when I was just a young kid, and I was like, hey, I just want to do YouTube, and YouTube was the platform at that time. It wasn't cool or anything, but it was the platform at the time that allowed me to be myself and show myself to the camera, which was super fun for me at the time. And then I started, simply just making Vine videos and just, understanding, hey, this is how YouTube works, this is how you record videos, this is how you do all these different things. But little did I know that ultimately learning all those things or starting out pretty simple was me just raw documenting my journey raw, and also just having that proof as well that, hey, I didn't just start now, I didn't just start making videos or when I started these daily videos, but rather I started a long time ago, and ultimately that has shaped the person that I've become over the past few years. And so here's what documenting in public for 100 videos has actually taught me. So this is the tech videos, the Vine videos that I was making, and ultimately just not the surface level platitudes, but timeless insights that I'm taking into the next 100 videos. And I think this one's going to be a super important video because it is just going to be a reference point for what I've learned over these past 100 videos and what I'm going to be taking into the next 100, and also ultimately just doing that milestone checkup, which I think is going to be super valuable. Because for me, one of the main things that when I started out I didn't know was that consistency would ultimately compound, and through this consistency it also creates clarity and not just momentum. And you may ask, how do you basically go through about this? Is saying, hey, I didn't post for daily attention, I did it to see my own patterns. 100 reps later, I understand my vision deeper than ever, and more importantly, I understand what it's not. I think from these videos each and every single day, it has shaped the person that I've become and the level of clarity that I have gained. When I first started these daily videos, I ultimately didn't know what it is that I was actively building for, and ultimately what the overarching goal was for these 100-day videos. And then for these daily videos specifically, now we are on day 65, and through these past 65 videos and the other 25 that we have made, a lot of clarity has been formed through that for me personally, and just becoming the person that ultimately just ships each and every single day. I think that has been the thing that has catapulted what I've been able to do, especially when it comes to videos, because I see there's so much of an advantage and so much moats that we can build from just creating daily videos. And before, a younger version of myself would have been super shy to just record and then ultimately just upload these videos, because I wanted it to be as close to perfect as possible. And now just by doing these past 65 days of just uploading each and every single day, I have just gain that level of clarity that, hey, it doesn't matter how perfect it is, just as long as you get the result, which is ultimately just shipping each and every single day and building those reps. That has ultimately transformed how I've been able to speak over the camera, and also ultimately how I'm just able to learn each and every single day. And I wish when I was younger I had spoken to myself or had this inkling to say, hey, the early videos that I've made, no matter how cringy they were or whatever, they ultimately build built the person or the version that I am today, and I'm super grateful for that. But I wouldn't have been possible if I just didn't start documenting my journey from back then, and ultimately saying, hey, building in public isn't just about being seen. It's about seeing yourself more clearly, then building from there. Basically understanding that, hey, through these daily videos, you're going to see yourself, and through seeing yourself each and every single day, you're going to build that level of clarity and precision within yourself and how you speak and how you communicate, that will ultimately just bridge the gap of, who you are today and who you want to become into the future. And then in between there, you kind of feel like you don't know what you're doing, or you don't know what it is that is going on, just like right now how I am. And I think that feeling is normal, to always feel that, hey, like I'm shipping these daily videos each and every single day. It always feels like I don't know what I'm doing, but it also kind of does. And also that, just also normalizing that feeling of saying, hey, this feelings is normal, and it's normal to feel this way. I always felt this way, like when I started and now, and also many years into the future, and that feeling is normal and it will never end. It's just more so saying, hey, this is just growth into the person that I am becoming, and the version of myself that is ultimately just going to be shipping a lot more and being the version of myself that I would have dreamt about when I was younger. And ultimately saying, hey, I'm seeing myself more clearly than ever before, simply because I'm building a lot more, and saying, hey, each and every single day I'm going to be shipping videos, and that's okay, but it's only gonna 10x into the future. But ultimately, I'm super proud, like 100 videos over the lifespan of my channel's history, and ultimately saying, hey, it's been 100 videos, like 100 videos from 0 to 100 now. But ultimately, who have I become from day 0 to this 100th day of just uploading? From the days that I started making Vine reactions and all those things, like how has the person within myself shifted, and how have I been able to transform, just making things and just creating things, which I super am obsessed about. I just love to create and just to make things, and I'm just super proud, and I'm super happy that we've been able to gather the things that we have been able to gather over the past 100 videos that I never even thought were possible. From getting noticed to from Apple South Africa, when I was making those tech videos, to ultimately getting noticed by Ryan Clog, which, shout out to him, really helped just motivate me a lot, if I'm being honest, in terms of just understanding that, hey, like you can do things for extended periods of time and not expect anything to happen. But ultimately, he jumped on and he was like, hey, let me jump on and let's just chat, and that was something that blew my mind at the time, to say, hey, like, so you can simply just not ask for anything and just keep on going and doing your thing, and through that the universe somewhat just makes sure that you're rewarded for what it is that you're doing. And I think that wouldn't have been possible if I didn't just say, hey, you know what, like, let's just do it. Like, it may seem really difficult and stuff like that, but hey, let's just do it. If we're gonna solve problems to the level and scale that we want to, ultimately this is nothing. And just just constantly pushing through that, I think it will unlock so many things more into the future by doing one hard thing at a time, and just building that and just building the self from that. Ultimately is gonna 10x what it is that we're gonna be doing into the future, and also myself as well. Which leads into the second point, which is, you're not selling, you're signaling. But which means each and every single video is a bad signal for your clients, for your collabs, for your investors. Just like I mentioned, you're not just saying, here's what I do, you're saying, here's how I think, here's how I value, and here's where I'm going. And that is more valuable than you could ever think. I never thought that simply just showing these daily videos and just pushing each and every single day for 100 for 100 videos, and then just having these past 65 days that I've been making each and every single day, you could ultimately build that bad signal, just saying, hey, I want to show how it is that I'm thinking. Because from day 0, the way that I spoke, from as a kid when I spoke, through those videos, and also just the telescope videos that I made, which is my absolute favorite video. And ultimately that has shaped the way that I've been able to think, the way that I've been able to just show up each and every single day. And I know that into the future, those have been the most valuable things that I could have built at that specific point in time, and it's only just gonna increase over the next few hundred videos that we're gonna be making. So I'm super excited about that, and also just showing, more importantly, that I'm building that thought, that proof of thought more than anything else. And how can I actively just stack this proof of thought in terms of, hey, the connections I'm making, and also just the way I'm learning from these videos and saying, hey, I don't know anything. I feel like I don't know anything, but ultimately I'm striving each and every single day to get that source of truth that will ultimately get us closer to what it is that we're actively building on a day-to-day basis. And I know that is super hard and it's a very long process, but I'm deep, like I'm super patient. We're expanding our time horizons, and I don't expect to succeed anytime soon or reach the level that I want to. And I think even if we do get there, that there's always a lot more that we will be striving for. But ultimately today, it's just ultimately just saying, hey, here's how I think, here's how I value, and here's where I'm going. Ultimately just showing that and documenting that is ultimately going to pull those people in that ultimately are resonate with what it is that we're actively doing. So ultimately, the third point that I like to speak with, which is build a network with cool people doing cool things at the same time. And ultimately this magnetizes the right people and repels the noise, because I don't want to be famous. I would rather have 10 views or 20 views per video if it means that I'm reaching the right people, because those right people are the people that understand what it is that we're actively building and what it is that we're actively solving for. And that is worth way more than 100,000 people that are watching our videos but don't know or aren't the right fit for what it is that we're actively building for, and also aren't aligned with what it is that I encompass within myself. And ultimately that means that the right people don't need convincing, but they ultimately need evidence. And this means your next 10k client, your 100k collab, or your 100 million or your 1 mil deal, they don't want a cold pitch, they want proof of depth. And how can I actively build this proof of depth within myself? I think just ultimately the question came from, hey, the only way that I could possibly do this in a way that would ultimately accelerate was through 100 videos. How can I just create 100 videos, even though right now we're on day 65? How can I just build these 65 days so far and ultimately build this mental proof or this mental mode that, hey, I have proof of thought, and I can develop this proof of thought in terms of how I'm speaking, how I think, and also how I'm shipping each and every single day. And using each and every single video as somewhat of a data point, and using that data point as the thing that is ultimately going to build the vision of Killer Chaos OS. Because in as much as you can do many certain things, I think this is one of the fastest accelerant ways that has ultimately 10x what I was doing at that specific point in time, and also just built that proof of depth. I know by no means am I anywhere close to that proof of depth that I want to be building for or want to be at, but ultimately each and every single day it's moving a lot closer. And how is it moving a lot closer? Through these daily videos. And that is an unmatched compounding effect that I wouldn't have thought to be possible till this day. But this is the proof that this is ultimately the proof that, hey, you can think, you can build, you can adapt, and you can endure. And showing the good, the bad, the ugly, not just showing the good and saying, hey, these are the good things that have happened. Like, so many bad things have happened. Like, we've spent so much time building something that was shiny object syndrome. Even me, for myself, spending hours and hours running around doing things that I thought were opportunity at the time, but then realizing that, hey, this is not going to be beneficial long term. Short term, 100% it may be good, but ultimately long term it may not be the best mode to take. And that was okay, because you ultimately learn. And I think just learning and just ultimately understanding that, hey, this is a game of learning. And 100 videos in, I built trust at scale without a single hard sell, because the main thing is, hey, I don't want to sell, I just want to show you how I think, how I speak, and who I truly am. And through that, we can form collaborations if it makes sense, and if it doesn't, that's also good. I'm also just ultimately there to help and just be the person that is useful to the world. Like Elon Musk says, like, just wake up each and every single day and be useful to the world. And I just want to be useful to the world in every single asset, in every single facet, and saying, hey, how can I just provide provide as much value as I possibly can on a day-to-day basis, but also push myself harder each and every single day. And through that, it also means that reflection compounds faster than action alone. In as much as you can, build, all these things, I think reflection is also a key aspect to that. Most people ship and move on. I reflect, distill, and share what I've learned while building, because I think building the decision logs is ultimately going to prove vital into the later stages, because we're going to understand that, hey, these are the specific decisions that we took, why we did it, and how that has affected what it is that we're doing, so that into the future we know that, hey, we've logged this logged this decision, and if it's not aligned with what it is that we're doing into the future, then we can delete it, and then we can ultimately understand that, hey, this is a wrong source of truth that we were pulling from, and that's okay. But how can we actively just build those decision logs that are ultimately going to help us reach the next level? And I think through these videos, it's ultimately built that decision log at an accelerated rate. Imagine, I wouldn't have thought that, hey, through 100 days, if I just brute forced it and said, hey, let's just do 100 days, and ultimately through these past 65 days each and every single day, I think has ultimately built the vision of Killer Chaos OS, and also the vision within myself to say, hey, this is how I'm actively refining, this is how I'm thinking, and this is how we're actively just going to be moving into the future. And that's how I turn 1 hour, and that's how I'm ultimately able to turn 1 hour of execution into 10x clarity, simply by just sitting down, reflecting, and understanding, hey, this is what has come of what it is that we're building, and this is how I plan to move into the future, by also just making sure that we are actively making sure that the action that we're taking makes progress, and reflection makes progress that scales, basically using those two hand in hand in order to build the next level of Killer Chaos OS, and ultimately understanding that, hey, you're building a system and a personal brand at the same time. These videos aren't ultimately just content, they're data for systems, workflows, offers, and positioning. And this is how I build and this is how I'm planning, I have been building Killer Chaos OS in public, ultimately saying, hey, each and every single day, these videos are going to ultimately, just build the mental model and the modes that we're going to be shipping into the future. And through these past 65 days, we've been able to do that to some degree. Now it's just asking the question of, how can we now just refine, just sit down, double down, and just refine the process each and every single day, so that we're ultimately understanding that when we roll this out, we're actively just have all those data points that ultimately allow us to build this machine into the scale that it needs to, through reflection, through just also gathering feedback, chaos feedback cycles, and also just making sure that we're ultimately understanding each and every single point from first principles, and that we're making sure that, hey, we understand we're failing, we're succeeding, but we need to make sure that we're documenting each and every single part, because through that documentation, I believe that it's only going to allow us to build a next generation of backend infrastructure layer that we're planning to build, that we're aiming to build each and every single day, to say, hey, these videos are data for what it is that we're going to be doing, and saying, hey, not by showing what I built, but rather showing how I think while I build, basically showing, hey, this is the thought process, the decision logs, and the decisions that we're actively making while I build and in public. Because ultimately, if we mess up, like, hey, that's okay, but ultimately just also being authentic about that, to say, hey, we've messed up and that's okay, but how can we actively just refine the process and what it is that we're actively doing? And that is ultimately, just going to refine the vision of Killer Chaos OS. But also because the thoughts shape the architecture, also understanding that, hey, the thoughts that we're having also shape the architecture of what it is that we're actively building in terms of workflows, mental models, and also just what we're implementing as well, to say, hey, the thoughts that we're having is the architecture, and how can we just constantly refine the architecture and make sure that we're doubling down. And also this architecture then shapes the future, to say, hey, this proof of thoughts, how are we actively building it, how is it actively building the future or shaping it, and then actively saying, hey, these are the steps, these are the processes that we took, and this is how we're building it into the future, which ultimately just allows us to understand that, hey, what we're doing and the thoughts and the ideas that we're doing and we're implementing, we know that, hey, this is how we're actively doing it, and into the future we're also just learning each and every single day. But ultimately, the real benefit from all of this is asymmetry. And what I mean by this is people know what I stand for before we even meet. And this is the craziest thing, that, hey, people already feel like they know me before we even meet, or before I even know who they are, simply through these videos. And, through 100 videos that I've uploaded on this channel, and the 65 days that we've been doing, each and every single day, that have accelerated, the progress that we've made in terms of Killer Chaos OS, but on the back end, and also on the front end, in terms of the building in public's aspect of it, has ultimately been something that has been a compounding effect. And through that, ops people, planners, and the future hires already know my frameworks. They know how I run, how I like to think about things, how I'm actively operating, and also where we're failing, what we're also succeeding at. And that is more valuable into the future, in my personal opinion, that, hey, people already know what it is that you're actively doing, and you can form collaborations and just partnerships simply through that, because people know what you're about simply through these daily videos. And each and every single day, I'm just gonna constantly just make sure that we're refining the process, pushing the needle each and every single day forward, and that we're also making sure that, hey, my thinkable is my thinking is searchable, referenceable, and also undeniable. How can I actively make my thinking architecture in a manner that is searchable, referenceable, and undeniable? How can I actively build these different these different things that ultimately just make sure that the way that we're thinking about things is laying the blueprint for the next generation into the future. We may fail, we may succeed, even though regardless, through all of that, we're just going to build anyway. And that is asymmetrical leverage, ultimately saying, hey, people know who I am and what I stand for before we meet. Ops planners, people already know that, hey, this is our thinking. We've built these mental modes and this thought architecture that is ultimately just going to scale into the future. And then this is what ultimately ties every single thing together, and what is next for the next 100 videos or so. And ultimately, just understanding this is also going to be super important, to say, hey, I'm not stopping, I'm sharpening, better storytelling, higher production, more collabs plus deeper guests, and also structuring the library categories, saying, hey, this is thinking, systems, outreach, AI, basically structuring out the videos to say, hey, we're creating a playlist specifically for thinking, we're creating a playlist specifically for outreach and planning, and ultimately saying, hey, this is how we're actively building each and every single day, and turning these videos into a thinking engine that powers Killer Chaos OS, because ultimately the main goal is to build the next generation of backend infrastructure. And how we're going to be able to do that is ultimately just building that asymmetrical leverage through these daily videos. And I know it's going to be a super hard future where we're actively just going to be building each and every single day, but through that, I know we're ultimately just going to be creating the future and the next generation of backend infrastructure that we ultimately are planning to build. And then, which ultimately leads to the final points, which is 100 videos in, and I'm still on day 65. I don't know why I said 69, but 65. But I'm building in public, not for likes, but rather I'm building in public, thinking out loud at scale, because this is my superpower. It's my thought, it's my proof of thought, and also my compounding edge. 100 videos that we've uploaded into this channel is just absolutely insane, and we still have about 20, 25, 35 more videos to go before we actually are finished. And I'm super excited to continue building the next generation of backend infrastructure. We're going to fail so many times, but I know that into the future, ultimately, we're going to be able to bring this big picture vision of Killer Chaos OS, where we're going to be reshaping industries, inspiring millions of people, and also having $100 million worth of impact into the future. It's going to be super hard. It's going to be super long. I think through these videos, we're building that source of truth that we can ultimately, just take from, and also just understand that, hey, this is the main vision for Killer Chaos OS. This is how we're actively building, and these are what the 100 videos have taught me about myself, and also about leadership, and also about building as well, because that is the most important thing, to say, hey, I'm just going to be building no matter what. I'm just going to be shipping each and every single day. And I think through these 100 videos, from making tech reviews, which was super fun, then I stopped, and then I started making videos like this, was ultimately something that has shaped the way that I speak, the way that I communicate, also understanding that, hey, in as much as that specific point in time, I have understood that, hey, I think I know how to speak on YouTube, but till this day I don't think I do, and it's only going to get better into the future. But how can I actively just improve on every single facet, bringing on more guests, speaking to a lot more cool people, and ultimately, just jamming each and every single day, I know is going to bring us closer to that, overarching goal of building Killer Chaos OS into the vehicle that inspires millions of people, that reshapes industries and inspires and also just creates this huge amount of impact. And through that, we're going to fail so many times, we're going to succeed so many times as well, but ultimately the number one thing is we're never going to stop pushing the envelope of what we think is possible each and every single day. And we're going to fail so many times, but the journey is the part that we're most excited about, or at least I'm most excited about. And I want to translate that to the team, in terms of, hey, never give up, let's just ship each and every single day. We may fail, we may succeed, doesn't matter, but ultimately each and every single day we're building anyway, and we're showing up in a manner that is consistent and building that compounding leverage that makes us undeniable. And ultimately through this, building this thinking engine and then building the second ops brain, which will be Killer Chaos OS into the future, I know that we're just ultimately going to become one step closer to bringing the big picture vision that I have for Killer Chaos OS, and that the team also is feeding off of, and also ultimately just keep on pushing the needle of what is possible. So it's been 100 videos. I think, for me personally, I'm super proud, for all the effort that, I've been able to make. So many times where I've, procrastinated and just thought that, hey, let's just sit on this and not make videos. But ultimately, the version of myself that's going to make the next 100 videos is completely different from the version of myself that, started out from 0 to 100 videos. So yeah, if I were to leave myself with anything for this video, I just want to say to myself, Farin, make these next 100 videos unforgettable and keep on shipping and never stop. And if you guys enjoy this video, make sure to leave a comment on the video. Make sure to follow me on X, LinkedIn, Instagram if you want to connect and jam. And also ultimately, just thank you again. Thank you for 100 videos. Whoever's watched any of my videos, just thank you. And also from the bottom of my heart, just thank you, each and every single person. And the people that watch the next 100 videos, let's make them undeniable. Let's keep on pushing the envelope forward and keep on waking up each and every single day with this big picture vision, and just also ultimately just building anyway. And if you guys, like I said, if you guys want to connect with me, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and leave a comment, and I will see you guys in the next video.